listening to the Charles Aris podcast, Inside the Client Partnerships Team. In this episode, Charles Aris Inc. Chief Growth Officer TJ Deal sits down with members of the firm's new Client Partnerships team, Joe Weinstein-Avery, Aaron Stroker, and Logan Spell, to break down how the team is redefining how Charles Aris engages with its clients. They discuss the launch of the team, the strategy behind the Platinum Candidate Program, and what it means to deliver proactive talent and deal flow in today's private equity landscape. Along the way, they share real-time insights on market trends, from in-demand finance talent to the growing role of AI, and what they're seeing across the first quarter. Let's dive in.
Hello, everyone listening in. This is TJ Deal. I am the Chief Growth Officer at Charles Aris, and my job is basically to support our leaders in the vision, a future vision for their businesses and practices, and how we go out and make that a reality. I also am a proud member of the Client Partnerships team, which is what we're here to talk about today. But before we jump into that, I've got three guests on the horn with me: Joe Weinstein-Avery, residing in Philadelphia; Logan Spell, coming live from Raleigh; and Aaron Stroker, coming live from Orlando, I think for the purpose of today. I think resides in Raleigh. And you're finding me in Pinehurst in North Carolina. So these are three members of the Client Partnerships team. Guys, welcome to the podcast. I think Aaron and Joe, as first years here at Charles Aris, I imagine this is your first podcast. Logan, is this first time, long-time listener, first-time caller?
This is. It's an honor to be here. So thank you, TJ. This would be the first podcast for me at Charles Aris.
It is good to have you guys. But guys, let's quickly go around. Maybe you can give a quick introduction, and then we'll dive into today, the Client Partnerships team, what it is, why we did it, and some of the things that we're seeing coming out of this quarter in.
Awesome. TJ, I can introduce myself first. I'm coming live to you from Philadelphia. I joined Charles Aris in November of last year after about a decade in the expert network business, working for a firm, a GLG leader in that space. I was focused on management consulting firms, private equity funds, really building client relationships and the kind of day-to-day servicing aspects of that business. Now at Charles Aris, working proud member of the Client Partnerships team. We'll talk a lot about that, but essentially my role is to go out and work with some of our largest clients to make sure that they, their business needs are met. Looking forward to digging into that. And Aaron, if you want to introduce yourself and then round it out with Logan.
So Joe and I were in the same class together coming on board here at Charles Aris. I spent the last 10 years of my professional career in the healthcare business development space. Started out on the clinical side of things, actually working in the operating room with physicians, and then transitioned over to more of a strategic capital sales role, selling a robotic platform to physicians in large hospital systems, working specifically with capital budgets and operational budgets and finding ways for major healthcare systems and healthcare leadership to purchase a massive capital piece of equipment. So new to the private equity world, but it's a very exciting, fun, very engaging and great space to be in. So very happy to be here at the Client Partnership team. Logan?
Sweet. Thanks, Aaron. And glad to be here again. Logan Spell, of course. I'm coming up on my third year here at Charles Aris. And if we want to count the internships, it'll be the fourth. So I actually interned when I was at North Carolina State University here in Raleigh, North Carolina, with our finance and corporate development team and strategy and go-to-market team. Tried my stint in consulting, in business and technologies and M&A consulting before pivoting back to Charles Aris. And it was one of the best decisions I have made. Spent the first year and some change formally in our strategy and go-to-market practice, recruiting current and former top-tier management consultants, then pivoted over into our finance and corporate development world. And I'm super, super proud and excited to be a part of this Client Partnerships team as of December 2025, which we're about to dig into.
Appreciate that, Logan. Yeah, we were lucky to poach Logan from our executive search business, which was a pretty significant win. Logan is also a recovering member of our on-cycle recruiting team. And if you don't know about on-cycle, look it up and be grateful that you don't have to be a part of it. Awesome work, guys. Solid stuff. I can round us out. As I mentioned, I serve as the firm's chief growth officer. I just celebrated my 10th anniversary here at the firm just a few months ago. Started in our executive search business, basically where I spent the first 7.5 years. Most of that, I guess, most notably leading what is now our finance and corporate development practice here at the firm before sort of starting my transition into this new role working across our different businesses. And for those of you that are new to Charles Aris, our organization is celebrating 57 years in business. We're a second generation family owned organization with 3 different divisions that make up around 150 people now at this point in time, which has changed quite a bit since I joined 10 years ago when I think we were around 30 people all in one office. And now the firm looks and feels a little bit different. But today as we operate, we have 3 divisions. We have our executive search business, Charles Aris Executive Search. That's our flagship division. That's probably the lens by which we're most known out in the marketplace. Doing executive leadership hiring across a number of functions and industries for both the private equity space primarily, as well as public and private corporations. Our second business is Charles Aris Transaction Services. We'll probably spend a little bit more time diving into that as we talk about some of what we're seeing in different trends. But this business is focused on finding acquisitions and taking acquisitions to our private equity clients. So going out and finding proprietary deals, most often founder-led by an individual named Sean Curley, who's the managing director of that division. And basically our clients will hire us to go out and follow a similar process to what's made us successful on the executive search side, to actually go out and find acquisitions, both platforms as well as add-ons. Really interesting emerging business at Charles Aris we started about 5 years ago. And then the third is our newest business, Aris Amplify, which is our professional recruiting division. We were really fortunate in that we were able to recruit Kim Shapiro to be the president of that division about, I want to say 1.5 years, 2 years ago. And that business has been lights out, basically doing, kind of more mid-level professional recruiting for most Charles Aris clients. And we've seen tremendous growth in that division. And so we launched our client partnerships team. We announced it to the organization in December, and we officially launched externally in January 1st. And before we dive into what this team is, we'll talk a little bit about kind of how we got there. For those of you that have worked with Charles Aris or are familiar with Charles Aris, as I mentioned, we've been fortunate in that we've been on a pretty significant growth tear over the last handful of years. The complexion of the firm has changed dramatically. We spent a lot of time last year thinking about how do we continue to evolve with the growth that we're seeing? How do we continue to keep up with that? And also stay true to what's allowed Charles Aris to get to where it is, right? A lot of executive search firms and professional services firms, once you reach a certain size, your most senior people make this kind of change from the ones doing the work to the ones selling the work, right? And that's not really core to who Charles Aris is. One of the things we've hung our hat on forever is that our most senior people are actually doing the work, right? You're seeing the leaders of our divisions when you're meeting with them every single week, right? We think that's important to our success. We think that's important to the way we train and onboard individuals. We think it's core to our growth. In fact, our CEO, Chad Oakley, he still runs the desk. He's still doing recruiting every single day. Loves it. Consider himself probably more of a recruiter than a CEO in some ways, at least as far as his interest is concerned. And so that was off the table, right? Sort of the traditional model of how you scale a professional services firm, which is take your partners, make them salespeople, take your mid-level people, they're now the ones leading the work, right? We did not want to follow that suit. And so the question is how do we continue to do what's gotten us where we are, which is crushing the work that we do, while making sure that we're still servicing our clients in the right way, right? Staying proactive, staying close to them, right? And so we decided to build out this client partnerships team to focus on that second part of the equation, right? Which is how do we stay close to our clients in the right way? How do we service them in the right way? How do we continue to be proactive about that relationship, not just reactive? And so what this group is, it's a team of, as I mentioned, it's a team of 7. And all we are focused on doing is serving the very best clients of Charles Aris. And really what this looks like is 3 things. One is really just being kind of the central point of this team, serving as a central point of contact for our largest clients. One of the pieces of feedback we've gotten as we've grown is, now we have not only different leaders working with our clients, but different divisions working with our clients at any given time. And we've gotten the feedback that would say, hey, it'd be nice just to have one person that we could go to if we needed something from Charles Aris, right? That central point of contact. This team is now, each individual is serving as that for their set group of clients that they're serving, right? Each of us have a pretty select group of Charles Aris clients that our entire job is to make sure that they are feeling really good about the relationship with Charles Aris outside of our active search work, active M&A work, right? That's one. Two, and probably what's gotten the most buzz in the marketplace and the sort of central pillar of this group is what we're calling our Platinum Candidate program. And this is basically, we want to be proactively bringing top 1% talent, platinum talent, to our clients on a more proactive basis, right? So, and this would be talent from a candidate perspective or from a business perspective, right? Right now, we have a number of kind of sell-side security integrator platforms that we are taking to our private equity clients. And basically where this came about was, we do a really good job of, a client comes to us and says, hey, we want to make this CEO hire, a president hire, or CFO hire, whatever it may be, right? Go out and find this person. Or, hey, we want to go and find this HVAC business, this size, this shape, this region. But some of the feedback that we've gotten was, hey, it would be great if we were also proactively hearing from you opportunistically. We're working on 150 open searches at any given point in time. On our executive search business, we're talking to superstar talents all the day. We're working on multiple buy-side M&A engagements at any given time. We're talking to great owners who could be interested in selling their companies that may not be right for the project that we're working on, but are absolutely the types of things that our clients want to hear about. That's what this team is here to help fill that gap. And I would say that initiative has been a slam dunk, to say the least, for our clients in the first quarter of this year, which has been really exciting so far. And then the last is what we're calling special projects. This is anything really kind of human capital related, probably research intensive consulting work that our team is doing for our clients, right? And, we've seen this as anything, as big as, a full-on landscape analysis of a private equity firm saying, hey, we want to build a separation management division, or what's the IR market look like in the private equity world, those types of things, to something as small as, hey, I'm going to be speaking at a conference in a week. What are you seeing in the marketplace? Those are the three pillars of the client partnerships team. Guys, what did I miss? And being on the front lines the way you guys are, what are we seeing?
I'd be happy to jump in here really quickly, TJ. And one thing that I think is imperative about this platinum process is, like you mentioned, we each have our own select cohort of private equity firms that we're operating with. We're getting to know really, really well. We want this platinum process to be highly customized, highly tailored, systemized for those clients. For example, if a private equity firm were to tell me, all I want to see is top tier finance talent, top tier CFOs in X, Y, or Z industry, I'm only going to bring that to them at the end of the day until they tell me otherwise. Now, we'll continue to pulse check on other things, but point being, we want to make sure that we're providing value in the appropriate way for each of these clients and not just finger in the wind with any sort of resume or any profile. I mean, these are truly vetted candidates that we want to ensure are right down the fairway for these clients.
Yeah, Logan, that's a great call. Charles Aris is far from the first professional services firm to opportunistically take talent to other companies as a way of getting exposure for their business or whatever it may be. This more selective, bespoke kind of solution is probably where it's had differentiation and probably what's led to the traction at this point. It's a good call. And guys, one thing I didn't even mention, but Platinum Candidate Program is obviously great for us. It's great for our clients. We haven't even talked about the candidate side of it yet, right? It's great for our clients because they're opportunistically seeing great talent, whether that's a talented candidate or a business that we're really excited about. But we haven't really talked about what it means from what's been sort of a positive from the candidates in the Charles Aris Platinum kind of wheelhouse.
I think the type of process that we provide these candidates is top level. The amount of times we've had a candidate that's gone through the the 4-week process of being a platinum candidate with Charles Aris, have referred us out to other companies, people that they're always talking to other private equity firms, managing directors. Our weekly update call that we have with these platinum candidates, we go through exactly how many firms we've reached out to, the amount of people within those firms that we've reached out to, and give them a very detailed explanation of, what conversations we're having, what opportunities are in the near future. And it just shows how detailed the client partnership team is. And hopefully once we place this candidate, that it kind of comes back. They show the type of detail that we give to them, and shows that we really want to help them find a new role if they're available and ready for it. So it's been a great experience working with candidates on a weekly basis with the Platinum Candidate Program.
Aaron, piggybacking off of what you mentioned, I think in general, it's really difficult to network with the individuals who, Charles Aris has relationships with. Even for hyper talented people, those platinum candidates who we are working with, it's still difficult to open doors. And I think with what we are able to do with the existing relationships that we've built is introduce folks who otherwise wouldn't be on each other's radars to each other, for those coffee chats and introductions. And, Aaron, you mentioned this, but the feedback so far has been overwhelmingly positive. I think what we're hearing is that a lot of what recruiting firms have done traditionally is very reactive and very transactional. And that's not to say that's the experience that everyone has had with every recruiting firm out there. That's just very general feedback of what it's typically like and what that experience is. So in working with, the Charles Aris team, I think it's shifting that experience from a transactional experience to a relational experience. And we're getting direct feedback from folks that they've enjoyed that so far. So hopefully we can continue to refine what that experience looks like, because certainly having started at the beginning of the year, there are some areas where we'll want to, streamline, but I think it's so far been, positive from the candidate side.
You guys make fantastic points. And Aaron, to your point on detail, just as we were saying, we're going to be tailored and systemized for our private equity clients, we're being just as tailored and customized for our platinum candidates as well, right? Ensuring that we're taking them to the right opportunities that they want to look at the end of the day, that they're getting those looks, that they're having those coffee chats, that they're able to network. And, I really think it just shows a testament to what we've built as an organization from a process standpoint at the end of the day, to what Chad and TJ have built in their respective areas. And these platinum candidates come in all forms of shapes and sizes at the end of the day, right, guys? I mean, we'll have a top tier mega cap P-backed CFO, but we'll also have a top 1% CO rated Bainey that's 5 years into their career, right, in the consumer space. And so it's, again, all different functions, all different industries and shapes and sizes that we have in our capability set. And again, I just think it's a testament to, Aaron, your point, the detail that we have, the practices that we've built over our 57 years, and the relationships that we have in the marketplace.
Logan and team, it's funny, I'm sure you guys have gotten this question, but one of the things that has popped up as we've been speaking to candidates and introducing this concept for the first time is, great, you guys charge for this? And the simple answer is no. We're getting benefits from it as the candidate is as well. And it's funny, I think a couple of months into rolling this out, I started to see LinkedIn articles about how recruiters were charging for introductions now to the candidate. And that is simply not what this program is. So if there's confusion out there in the marketplace on what this type of relationship is, we're going to work with you. We're doing it to form relationships. And hopefully that's something that resonates.
Joe, I mean, simply put, it's a win-win-win at the end of the day, right? For the candidate, it's opening up conversations and doors. For the client, it's introducing you to literally the best of the best that we're seeing in the marketplace. And quite frankly, we want to win business, and we feel this is very appropriate and continuative way to do that at the end of the day. But you're right. Hey, these are, conversations that we're happy to have. And of course, we want you to hire this individual at the end of the day, but we also want to ensure that your team's needs across the board are just being met, and think that this solves for this, whether it's a platinum business that we're bringing, a platinum founder, or a platinum, C-suite executive or consultant at the end of the day, or a banker, right? So Joe, I think you make very valid and great points there. Team, I'd love to maybe go around the horn and just talk about the trends that we're seeing in the marketplace. What type of talent is hot right now? What type of talent are we not seeing is hot right now?
I mean, finance and corporate development, always hot, always will be hot, right? I feel like if you look at our list of platinum candidates, the majority of them are the finance and corporate development candidates or type of candidates that we're taking to market. Again, there's always the strategy and go to market ones sprinkled in there. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but would you guys not agree? It's finance and corporate development, CFOs, controllers.
Oh my gosh, Aaron, I've not heard from a single private equity client that they don't want office to the CFO talent at this point, right? That's always going to be in demand, whether it's a turnaround business, a growth business, more of a seed stage almost business. You're always going to need that top tier finance talent. I think something that obviously is ballooning, obviously is emerging and has been for the last few years is AI talent at the end of the day. And I think a lot of the marketplace doesn't know what to do with this AI talent, doesn't know where to plug it in, how to plug it in, where do we pull from? We're seeing a lot of really, really solid talent coming from top tier management consulting firms. We have a AI leader in Noah Schultz who is fantastic, knows this market like the back of his hand, and those individuals are being plugged in a myriad of different ways. Whether you're talking about a value creation role at a fund level, or you're talking about a chief AI officer role at a PE-backed portco, or a simple integration lead that's focused on A and AI, right? And the continuity between the both of those. So I certainly would think that finance talent is always going to be top of mind, but emerging is certainly that AI talent across the board. Any and every industry you can think of is trying to figure out how do we get our hands and our heads wrapped around AI, and where do we put this? Right? Do we need a team? Do we need a single individual? Do we need to outsource this sort of stuff? Right? I think there's a lot of chatter in the marketplace and a lot of unknown, quite frankly, on what we do with this. I'd love to ask the team's thoughts on AI. What are we seeing there?
Yeah. Logan, I think you mentioned this earlier, but I think I'm seeing about a 50-50 split of private equity funds, either reaching out to us or when we're on these conversations who have a really solid understanding of exactly what they want to go do in the near term in terms of roles to help them execute their AI strategy, or simply an open question and questions to us on what we're seeing in the marketplace. And you mentioned Noah, Logan. Noah is recruiting day in, day out AI strategists. So he's seeing from the talent landscape what they are interested in applying this technology or applying AI to what they want to go do next. And he's also speaking with large and mid-cap private equity funds on how they're thinking about utilizing that type of talent. So really interesting dynamics. And I think I catch about half of what Noah is saying when they're on the calls, but it's really interesting for me to be able to hear and listen into those conversations that are happening.
It's funny you brought that up. I literally just had a call with Noah right before this podcast, and he said that his associate and research team are basically tapped out. He's not. He wants as many AI searches as he possibly can, but he's going to have to hire a few more associates and researchers because the AI space is so hot right now. We have a call later on this afternoon with a new firm specifically designed to talk about AI, which is super exciting.
Yeah. The other thing you guys touched on finance and corp dev roles. I mean, I would say corp dev services roles in particular. I think it's no secret that services, businesses, HVAC, plumbing, roofing, those have been rolled up over the last decade or so and will continue to be a hot space. And it, now I think is getting to the point where if you're going to have an edge in a competitive, M&A market within those services verticals, you need a really talented individual who knows those spaces really well. So we were on a call or have been on a couple calls where folks are now potentially thinking about bringing in veteran sales leaders to come in and help actually run M&A in the specific services line that they're interested in. Because they have, existing relationships with mom and pop firms who, are not necessarily looking for the traditional relationship with, a banker or somebody coming in from a large private equity fund out of New York or LA.
Joe, spot on there. I mean, we've certainly seen an emergence of private equity business development in the last, call it 24 months, right? Particularly for lower middle market businesses, to your point, that maybe don't want to deal with intermediaries at the end of the day, and your brokers and bankers. They want to deal, with individuals who are picking up the phone, calling them, almost knocking on the door, right? These proprietary deal sourcers are incredibly hot across the board. And it's not just business services. We'll see it in the software space, of course, as well. You'll certainly see it in healthcare, but that's both at a fund level and a portco level. We're starting to see teams have dedicated, even junior sourcers who are tagged to a specific portco, and all they're doing are looking for add-ons at the end of the day, establishing relationships with these mom and pop shops, these owners that might not have a second generation individual that can come in and take the business, or their son or their daughter, whoever it may be, doesn't want the business at the end of the day, right? That's their job to go and find those. I think our Charles Aris Transaction Services does a really nice job of being able to bridge that gap and be a little bit of a liaison for that specific area. But PE, BD, private equity origination, direct sourcing, whatever anyone wants to call it, has certainly ballooned, and it's certainly been a game changer, I think, for a lot of these private equity firms from everywhere from 500 million AUM up to 50 billion AUM, right? So I think you make a great point there, Joe.
I mean, Logan, that's a solid segue. I mean, guys, we got to talk about CATS, right?
Yes, we do.
Charles Aris Transaction Services, which we affectionately refer to as CATS, it feels like it's on fire right now.
It absolutely is. I literally just got an email to set up another call with a private equity firm for the CATS, which is so exciting. That's 3 today that I'm setting up meetings for.
It's kind of this interesting thing where, if you'd asked me, hey, what's the right place to spin out a leading M&A advisory business, I would not have said an executive search firm, right? I would have probably said an investment bank or something along those lines. But, when you think about the actual motion of getting these owners on the horn, taking their business to market, right? There's a lot of similarities with it. But yeah, it is amazing how the ability to go out and kick up deals that no other brokers are able to get on the phone, and the way that is resonating in the marketplace. I mean, it's funny, we talk about, CFO roles and how quickly private equity firms jump to good CFOs. I think I saw the chats fly in there yesterday. I think we had a dozen of our private equity clients say they want to move forward with one of the services CFOs that we just launched a platinum campaign with. But that doesn't even hold a candle to when we have the right type of specifically services business, right? Right now, we're doing a lot in the security space, both on the manned side and unmanned side, as well as, a little over in packaging. But, we're seeing, partners at private equity firms responding in 10 minutes to these outreach and basically saying, this is the best email I've got all week, right? Which is, I guess, somewhat indicative of just the war for good transactions and reasonable transactions and proprietary transactions right now. But, I think I'd always had sort of an appreciation for it. But since we've been taking it to market, it's almost a whole different ballgame.
Yeah, I think it's a testament to Sean and his teams, our CATS, Charles Aris Transaction Services, capabilities of finding good owners and finding good deals at the end of the day. Our relationships that we have historically developed have netted into this, right? We all know private equity firms don't want to overpay at the end of the day. But to your point, TJ, these are reasonable businesses. They're reasonable valuations. They're good people at the end of the day, too. They're good founders who have built a good business. But Sean is certainly busy at this point, right? We've got a lot of good deals, so come get them.
And this is, for those listening, this is Sean Curley, Curley. If you are a business owner that is even thinking about selling your company, you should speak with Sean. And if you are a private equity firm that's looking for opportunistic or retained deal flow, do not hesitate to reach out.
I would like to touch on one thing just as it relates to deal flow. You mentioned business services, Joe, of course, restoration, roofing, plumbing, HVAC, all along those lines have been rolled up for well over a decade now. We're really starting to continue to see a trend in the security side, the fire and life safety side of these businesses, right? And how can we get creative, whether it's with, alarm systems or automation within commercial security and fire and life safety. I mean, firms are certainly getting broad with how they integrate some of these deals and what they want to add on, right? Not every firm, of course, is the same, but, business services continues to just evolve in that sense. We're not seeing that slow down or go away by any stretch. It's just different little niche subsectors of that, right? Team, I'd love to also maybe touch on really quickly some of the nuances that we're seeing with, strategy and go-to-market hiring and transformation roles. The bread and butter historically of Charles Aris has been recruiting current and former top-tier management consultants. Team, what are you guys seeing from a strategy and go-to-market side? I certainly have seen a lot of demand for CRO level talent and go-to-market talent on a software side of the house.
Leave it to the business development guys to leave, Charles Aris's largest practice, for the last 10 minutes of the podcast. But Logan, I think one of the things that I've seen is, I guess, first and foremost, we are busy as it relates to those types of roles. That remains in high demand this year. And the team is working diligently, on the existing searches that we have, and searches continue to come in. But one of the other interesting things that I've noticed in those requests are with the current or former management consulting background, EM and up, firms are demanding that they have some sort of AI experience in working with, on a specific project or utilizing AI and day in and day out in their workflows. Probably not groundbreaking, but that is just an interesting thing that I've picked up on.
Curious, TJ, you're the most tenured guy here. What trends what have you seen? I mean, you're pushing 10 years here at Charles Aris. You've been in the game for a very long time.
I mean, I will say that the strategy and corp dev have been obviously the two big tent poles of Charles Aris on the executive search side, right? You ask our private equity clients about those two divisions and, those two types of roles, and they're going to say Charles Aris is where you go, right? But it's the sort of emergence of these adjacent areas that's just been the most interesting thing to see. I think this kind of realization that we had a few years ago that there's a lot more overlap with go-to-market. Go-to-market and strategy have a lot more overlap than maybe we thought, right? Obviously a lot of these strategic leaders are focused on working with the CEO on, growth and, which is more kind of organic and strategic in nature, but that these commercial leaders are no longer just your hired run and gun salesmen, right? These are really well-rounded individuals who are kind of playing across that chief commercial, chief strategy, and that sort of concept of, hey, we're going to build this practice around finding the most strategic commercial types, CROs, CCOs. And I think we were out in front of the marketplace on that in a nice way. And Brian Landau, who leads our go-to-market division, I think has been the right person to build that out. And, I think the other is, I think we are about to usher in a new age for our engineering and operations practice. I think that historically that division, which is doing a lot of work, COO, chief engineering, and kind of to director level sort of search work. I think that we had done a lot of work with, more of the sort of blue collared side of the industrial world. And, we hired a leader about 2 years ago who actually had run the drivetrain division at Tesla. So he came from an operating, really impressive operating background. And I think it's ushering in this new era of tech-driven industrials for Charles Aris, which I think is the way that industry is going in general. And not surprised to see that practice gaining traction. And then, controllers. Oh my gosh. I think that we had to make a decision a few years ago. Do we even keep doing controller searches because they were so difficult? And we had this idea that, hey, we should hire a specialist who that's all they do. Hire of Daniel Craig now. We've now gone from, do we even want to keep doing controller searches to now, we think we have the top controller recruiting kind of system in the, the industry. But there's so many, even from 2015 to 2020, the amount of change, but from 2020 to 2026, the last 5 years, it's a totally different firm, which has made those 10 years feel pretty quick.
I would say on, a pure strategy realm as well, when we're thinking about these current and former consultants, and from your question, portfolio operations teams continue to look for top tier, I'm talking top 10, 5, 1% rated strategy consultants from your top tier firms for these teams, whether it's an associate, senior associate, all the way up to operating partner level. Those roles continue to stay hot, continue to expand as more and more of these private equity teams think about separating investment and portfolio operations, which we've, of course, seen for the last 6 years or so, but it continues to stay prevalent and top of mind for these individuals. What's interesting, though, is that there was a bit of a hiring lull from these strategy consulting firms. And so that demand for the actual top tier individuals became extremely sought after, while the supply of those individuals dipped considerably. Even, I'd say, since 2024, ratings on these consultants, the belt has just tightened extremely. Finding those individuals is a little bit harder, but we are the firm, of course, that knows them, that speaks with them every single day. And those individuals continue to find operating roles and exceed in those roles as well across the board.
All right, guys, this entire podcast has been very business, very professional, which is not necessarily always how we roll, at least internally. All right, your biggest flop that you can laugh at, biggest mess up that you can laugh at in the first quarter of the client partnerships team. I can kick us off while you guys are thinking, because I was thinking about this. So when we have a new platinum candidate, we'll pick up the phone and call some of our clients. Some of them will reach out by email, and we spend a lot of time putting together. We obviously can't say, hey, here's the resume. There's a level of confidentiality around it that's really important. But we'll reach out and typically say, hey, here's a few things you should know about this candidate, right? We put a lot of time into building out that email. And we'd had one last month that Ryan Morgan, one of the members of our team, had made, and we put it together. He sent it out to the group, and I grabbed the email and had reached out to a number of my clients in my coverage group. And I went back to follow up with them on some of the ones who did not respond, and realized that in addition to grabbing the email, I had also grabbed his signature. So at the bottom of my email, every single one of them didn't say TJ Deal, Chief Growth Officer, said Ryan Morgan, Senior Director of Client Partnerships, to about 30 of my clients. So I'll get us started there, but that's mine.
Yeah, we're definitely not utilizing AI to do automated outreach here at Charles Aris. I think for the first month of my kind of pitch calls and introducing the client partnerships team to our clients, I was completely misquoting the volume of searches that we were doing on a weekly basis or just rolling basis. I think, and Chad hopefully does not listen to this podcast, although I'm sure he does. But instead of 130 to 140, and I'm sure that will be 150 to 160 soon, I think I was saying 30 to 40 searches at any given point.
Hasn't held us back too much as far as keyword is concerned. Actually, no, my favorite Joe thing was he would humbly make it seem like not everybody knew who GLG was. He's like, I work at this professional expert firm. You may be familiar with it. It's called GLG. And everybody's like, dude, we know who GLG is. Everybody uses GLG. He's also like, I also went to this little school called John Hopkins. I'm not sure if you've ever heard about it.
Yeah, I think we're learning that I just am not very good at pitching things. But I really am. I'm great at, I think, listening to what our clients are hoping to do and getting them introduced to really talented people over here at Charles Aris.
All right, Aaron, Logan.
I actually just had my biggest flop this past week. Actually, we, our big marketing strategy campaign that we're sending out as a team, Charles Aris as a whole is very big on scripts, and we all come together and write these very good, detail-oriented, elaborate emails. And one of our emails had 2 different scripts in the same one, and I accidentally didn't delete the other script that was included in the main email. So I sent probably 10 emails to someone that said, use if this is a fun level person, and corp dev, and then did not delete the rest. So, you live and learn. I figured it out and went back and recalled all those emails. I don't think it worked, but it made me feel better that night.
Yeah, I don't know if we want to throw this in there, but recalling emails only works for internal people, not external people. Just as an FYI to anyone out there, this client partnerships team prides themselves on grinders, right? Pounding pavement, pounding the rock every single day. And it was one rainy day, the middle of January, where I was pounding out some emails and business development calls and ended up closing my blinds, grinding so hard, didn't realize that it was about 7:30 when I decided to pick up the phone and call an individual about a platinum candidate that I was working with. Straight cold call. They had never spoken with me before. I'd never spoken with them, obviously. And, it was a good learning lesson. But we're working with them today.
I was going to say there was a happy ending to this story.
There's a happy ending. There's light at the end of the tunnel. We're continuing to grind and get better.
Well, for all of you out there who are in any type of sales or client services or business development capacity, even one of the top search firms and M&A advisory firms in the industry, still making mistakes. I think the moment you stop making them is the moment you're not moving quickly enough, is my guess.
Couldn't agree more.
All right, guys, I think we're at time. For those of you that are still listening, until next time, Logan, Aaron, Joe, thanks, guys.
Thanks for tuning in to the Charles Aris podcast. For more insights and resources, visit us at www.charlesaris.com. We'll see you next time.